Good evening.
Everywhere I go on this island, it seems to me I find degeneracy.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes. See, it's a lot scarier when there's no motive, Sid.
We have a bargain.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
Do you feel the pain? Well, see, pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
His entire work consists of violence, all the time, obsessed with the issue of violence. Mayhem, gouging out of eyes, autopsies on the stage.
Come. It is time to keep your appointment.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you are well. We are back after a short break for episode 110. 110 of these, 110 of Double Feature Horror Show. And we'll feature some 110 violence in this. That's the best pun I could come up with, folks. It has been a long week, but I hope you are well. I see loads of regulars in the chat, and for the first time in months, I am actually remembering not just to say hi to everyone live. The Enrieb, Dr. Prepper, good to see you, Mergoot, Maverick, Eadwolf, Servus. Who else? Johnny, are you still around? If you're still here, mate. Not only am I saying hi to you guys, regulars in the chat who catch us live most weeks, I'm also going to say hi to everyone watching on the recap. About half of you, more than half of you, tend to come in after the show. And I always forget to say hi to you until like the last 20 minutes where only the true veterans are around. So hi to everyone watching on the recap. I hope you're fine. What order to do this in? Well, you know what? It's been so while. I frankly, I've just got to get back into it. We're going to cover Asylum tonight. It's going to be, I think, a laugh. I like it. I've got a guilty soft spot for this film. It is once again an Amicus production. There was a bit of a tussle up. Are we going to do Asylum from 1972, or are we going to do Tales from the Crypt 1972? They pumped out two of these in a year. Can you tell, folks? Ultimately, shameless favoritism wins out, and I really like Asylum, so we're doing that. I will mask it with some interesting references from horror experts, some hefty history tomes that you'll probably hear when I whack them on the desk. But if I'm honest with you folks, it's not about an interesting sociological period and policy discussion in British history. I just like Asylum. But before I go any further and before we get into the film, I couldn't do this on my own. I am joined by my regular co-host, TCG. You can't miss him. He's I'll try it again. You can't miss him. He's white, got blonde hair, and his nose is pointy. He's the bad guy. It's that crime guy.
Oh, it's so good to be back.
Welcome.
How are we doing, everyone? How are you doing, chat? I say it like they're gonna say it back to me, aren't they? They're gonna speak back to me.
You're gonna be waiting for a while. I have this on the what's it called? The low waiting time. What's it called?
Low latency.
I've got this on normal latency.
Oh blimey! So what's that, like 20 seconds delay?
Yeah, about that. It's like second class mail.
So basically what you're saying is we can insult the stream and we've got a 20-second head start to peg it.
Totally.
Love it.
John Gorris, stream regular, good to see you, and dropping in a very sweet reference there. Thank you.
The Ace Attorney TCG. I love it.
Yeah, you've been busy, haven't you?
Do you know what? I don't know. I don't know why, but I was like, do you know what I want to do? Right, I want to pick up my Switch and I want to start playing some of my Ace Attorney games, and I just figured that would actually be a good game to sort of have a little bit of a stream of, and it just completely took over my life for like 2 weeks, and I'm going to be doing another stream tomorrow of it over on the second channel. So I think that's what we're 16 parts into it now. But I tell you what, I've forgotten how much fun that game is, and it's literally just a click and read game, but it's so fun. It's so fun.
You bring it alive, like your narration just cracks me up when you're doing it.
That wasn't even intended. That just sort of happened.
No, I'm a fan of it. I mean, there's, as you say, 16 parts, so I've been dipping in and out. But crikey, what would you say has been the highlight? Actually, do you want people working all the way through? What one's the standout case that people should check out?
Okay, you got to check out. I think it's the third turnabout. Oh my god. Yeah, I distinctly remember having a lot of fun with the third turnabout. Oh, no, actually, tell a lie, it's the fourth one. It's the fourth one, because in that one, you actually get to cross-examine a parrot. But again, like, you know, being a true crime nerd, that was based off of a true event, where a parrot was used as evidence to convict a woman for murdering her husband, because the parrot basically recited the last words of the husband, which was something along the lines of "No, don't shoot," and then he was mimicking the gunshots.
Wow.
Yeah.
Goodness me.
Yeah, crazy story that.
Yeah. I liked it. I was starting to feel smart while I watched it when I was like working out the clues as well, and being like, wait, that's why he's lying.
Yeah.
And
they've also announced.
Thing, I got that.
Yeah, and they've also announced the Apollo Justice Justice trilogy. So I couldn't have streamed this at a better time, and that's going to be coming out in 2024. I'm planning on streaming the games that they're covering anyway, which is Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney, Dual Destinies, and Spirit of Justice. So I'm planning on covering those anyway. I'm going to do the whole lot basically. It's like 11 games, but I mean, I might come back to the remastered trilogy when that's eventually released, because I'll tell you what, again, like the Japanese games, they have a tendency to sort of like switch up their characters every now and again, and I think Apollo Justice, bless him, he got a bit of a bad rep because they've not really treated him as well as they perhaps could have, but he's a solid character, and Phoenix Wright does sort of hang around, and in the latter two games especially, it's kind of like a co-op game between them, if you will. You know, they sort of take turns at cases, so one will lead one will lead another. But yeah, I'm loving it. And it was good because it was like 7 months before I'd done anything on that channel, and I was like, I need to put something out there, and I figured, it's a crime game essentially at the end of the day, and I'm that crime guy, so it fits. Let's do it.
It's relevant. Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
It's in your wheelhouse.
Exactly.
Oh, sweet. There you go, folks. It's good fun. Check them out. It's very cozy listening. Very cozy listening indeed, because the narration is there. But the visuals do help as well. Like, these are nice animations. Okay. Well, I'll mention it now why people are here. I was off for a couple of weeks, and people on the recap will want to know, and I imagine there maybe people might ask questions later in the stream relevant to our effective co-host, the second co-host, that is of course the fantastic Gatsby. It's not something I've been looking forward to mentioning, but unfortunately, bad news on the old Gatsby front, I'm afraid. The reason we didn't do the stream 3 weeks ago was, unfortunately, that Gatsby got suddenly quite ill, and I'm afraid, unfortunately, we did lose him. But we were very lucky to have the lovely lad. If you've never actually seen him, I know if you've been around here for any amount of time, you will be very familiar with Gatsby. That beautiful lad would come in, and you're probably most familiar with him making those wonderful loud cameos, just coming in.
Cameos, I like that. Cameo appearances. I
think that's all credit to Mima, actually.
Okay.
You will know his voice. I thought he's a massive part of my life. And he darn well made sure that he was a massive presence on the show by just coming in and screaming. You couldn't stop him really. If you've never seen him, this is that lovely lad. Yeah, I fully endorse F in the chats to Gats. Let's have those in there for my lovely lad. This is him. And yeah, it was a bit bad. It happened literally on the day of streaming, so you can understand. And then I was out the country, and I wasn't quite up to it last week either. And I think you can tell from the voice I maybe overestimated my ability to talk about the lovely lad at the moment. But I'll just say we got very lucky with him. He was 11 and a bit when we adopted him from Battersea, and the way they told the story with all his health issues, it was like he wouldn't last the taxi ride home.
Oh wow.
Yeah, seriously, they made us think like, I don't know if I want to get the mega box of food the way you're selling this. But we had 8 years with him. He made it to 19, and he was in fantastic spirits and fantastic health until one half of one afternoon, and I think that's pretty darn good going. It is very weird not to have him come in and scream in the stream. I've got another lovely photo of him as well.
He had a good knack. Sorry to interrupt. He had a really good knack of chiming in just at the right moments. Oh,
He really did. He really did. One thing that we could never work out is he had a borderline superpower for working out when I was going to film. Just he might be like full on paint me like one of your French girls on the bed, totally comatose. Once I'd got all my filming equipment up, he was there wanting to deliver a soliloquy every single time. And so there are a few videos you see. I think it might be the Invasion of the Body Snatchers or the Craft Legacy. I just gave up. He had come in, he wanted to talk again. I was like, fine, I'm just going to scoop you and we'll carry on going.
Oh.
Sometimes you have to do it because Gatsby gets his way, bless him. So, sad not to have the little chap around anymore. Managing not to cry at the moment. Darn it. Thought I was so stoic. And it sort of makes this one a bit more special because one of the other things that he would always do, he was a massive lap cat. And so he did all the horror homework. Unbroken record of doing the horror homework because he wanted to be on my lap every evening. And so Asylum is the last film that we watched together. Bless his heart, which makes this one a little bit more special for me. So I don't know what people have to hand. For me, Fez has got the right idea. Good one, Fez. Yes. That's exactly where I was going to go with this. I might send some. I might try and organise something to get a little support to Battersea, who connected us with this lovely lad and looked after him until we could take him in. But for the moment, whatever you've got, if you fancy doing a toast, it'd be welcome. I have got something called finocchietta, which is a fennel liqueur. It's quite nice, really, and I think there's a toast in there for Gatsby. I hope you'll join me in it. Thank you. I held that together pretty well, I think.
You did pretty well.
Yeah, cheers. Very stoic. Very stoic well. Indeed. So a question I mean to ask most times is, and I often forget, had you heard of Asylum before?
No. First time you mentioned it to me was a few weeks back, and I think I almost picked the wrong film initially.
Did you get Asylum of Satan?
I think I did, but then
next year? Yeah.
But then I found the right one, and I downloaded that legally, of course. Then it was in a foreign language, so then I had to go and find another legal, totally copy as well to watch. So that was fun.
Yeah. So I just Maverick, I'm with you there. I'm with you. Thanks, man. So yeah, it may be not that well known. I mean, I assumed this was pretty well known, but it is able to just be up on YouTube in its entirety, not being mute, which is a bit of a treat. So, so hopefully everyone did manage the horror homework this week. I mean, it's been 3 weeks and it's on YouTube. So
I know you had extra time, folks. You know, so no excuses. Detentions otherwise.
Ah, bless. I caught this way back. This, as far as I can remember, this was just one of those ones that BBC Two stuck on one night.
Right.
Like, they'd often throw the sort of more out of the way stuff on at about 10:30, 11, and I would catch a lot of weird horror films that way, and this one stuck in my brain. That and was it The Ghoul was one of the more obscure ones that they stuck in there. So I saw this early and I loved it straight away. I loved the twist. I love the aesthetic. I love the sort of rapid fire stories.
Yeah.
So this has been a long running sort of, how can I say? I've been fond of it for a long while, but I wouldn't be surprised if people hadn't heard of it.
So is it fair to say this is kind of like your go-to one if there's, I don't know, like nothing else to pick, let's say? Because I'm sure you would have seen this a few times now.
I have, yeah. I did ponder like branching out. Shall we try something new? And I thought, no, I want to show everyone Asylum.
Too far.
I'm shameless of it. I mean, from the period, I'm just thinking, but this probably would be my favourite from the period.
Okay.
I've seen a lot, but there's like some interesting things that are shaken up in Asylum that you don't see in the others. So just like throwing, oh hey Mima, good to see you. You'll remember, it's a while back now, but you remember Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, and one thing we noted. Oh, sorry.
No, go on. Sorry, I was just going. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you remember one thing we noted, that was 1965. It got an X certificate, and you couldn't believe it because there's no blood in it.
That's right.
No blood whatsoever. And like a mere 7 years later, you're seeing in this they've stepped it up quite a bit. I mean, let's not pretend it is relatively tame. I mean, at this point, 1972, the BBFC was battling with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So
yeah, there you go.
I mean, I won't get lost in BBFC history lore, but like 1971, they had Straw Dogs, or was it Clockwork Orange? It's one of those. Then they had Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Then they got hit the year after with The Exorcist. You know, just it was a tough time. And Asylum comes out and gets the same certificate as The Exorcist.
Do you feel like, I mean, do you feel like it's kind of like a cultural thing though between America and Britain in terms of how they present their horrors? Because I mean, this was around a time where, like you said, you know, you had like your Texas Chainsaws and your Exorcists, and you know that there were, I would say, far air quoting here, like gorier films from the time, but were produced, you know, over on the other side of the pond. I've always felt like with British horror in particular, going back in years, definitely not the case now, but in sort of like the earlier years, there was this general sense of it being a lot more tame, a lot less, you know, visually disturbing, a lot less. I mean, even like some of the music, like the musical choices that they would use in the films, would be very sort of upbeat and happy-go-lucky. I mean, like in this one, for example, you know, there were a couple of musical choices, which I thought, okay, doesn't really kind of match what you're doing, but it was very sort of reminiscent at the time. You know, like I suppose the Wicker Man would be another example of that. You know, when he's going into the village, and you know, there's just all this like lovely little happy music being played, and it's like,
yeah. I mean, you wouldn't be wrong in that. It's most definitely America, France, Sweden, later Italy were the big problems for the BBFC because they were producing films that went way further than we did in our own productions in Britain.
Yeah.
Like with The Wicker Man, I think that was probably like almost a counter reaction and a deliberate attempt to do something less obviously violent.
Right.
But just in general, yeah, we are tamer here. Although even that said, you know, Amicus, I think, were notably tamer than other stuff happening. If we get to some Hammer horror of the time, in fact, even I'm afraid, sorry, this will always be the one I go back to. Oh gosh, Curse of Frankenstein or Horror of Frankenstein, whichever. I want to say Curse, the one from 1958,
Right.
with Christopher Lee as the creature, gets his eye shot out. I couldn't believe it when I saw that. Just like blood streams down the face. It's nasty. It's very nasty. And that stood out. So we're definitely tamer overall. You're totally right. But also, I think Amicus just tended to lean a bit tamer generally. Just in most of their stuff.
It's almost like they were trying to appeal to people like YouTube.
They were ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Very ahead of the game.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing. So just the quick background. So I'm not repeating too much. Yeah, this is an Amicus Productions. This is from Milton Subotsky and Max Rosenberg, who started producing things to rival Hammer Horror in the mid 60s to late 70s before they sort of split up and went over to Canada. They focused on anthology films. I'm trying to not repeat myself. If you want to know about Amicus in great depth, watch the stream we did on Dr. Terror's House of Horror. I go all into their background here. This is firmly the phase where they are just churning out, basically. And because of the nature of anthology films, they're able to get a ridiculously good cast here. You know, oh gosh, I'm going to mess up the name. Patrick McGee, who would be in a load of these, including, I found out, Francis Ford Coppola's early horror movie Dementia 13, which intrigues me.
Yeah, not seen that one either. Oh no, I was reading up again. This was a prime example of stuff that you've talked about, where you could get, especially with the anthologies, you can get people into, you know, with you know, big named actors, and you can just get them to sort of do their bits and get them to bugger off. Peter Cushing, I read up, had filmed his stuff within, is it 2 days?
Yep. Herbert Lom. At the end, filmed it in an afternoon.
Did it in half a day. Like, it's like, what?
In and out.
Yeah.
You can't beat it, can you?
No.
You get the feeling he wasn't massively enthused about it.
So, which one was? Because I'm terrible with actors. Which one's Herbert Lom? Who did he play?
He is. Oh gosh, and you know I don't remember anyone's name. I want to say it's not Dr. Byron. It's hang on.
Oh, hang on. Is he the guy who makes the
it is
robots?
Dr. Byron.
Yeah, he makes the robots.
That's right. Yes, he makes the little robots, the mecha trumps as a.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
Folks, if you didn't do the horror homework, mecha trump.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get over it. The resemblance is uncanny.
It's uncanny, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. I am the greatest robot ever. Nobody builds robots like me.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, as you say, filmed it in an afternoon. It's just, they're at this point, they're making it so efficiently, 2 in a year. Roger Corman is probably the only one beating that record, and they know the ropes here. So they brought in Robert Bloch, who we will know best from his writing in Weird Tales, his association with Lovecraft, and also, of course, writing Psycho. And Robert Bloch got to write all of this. He was adapting some things he'd done previously, some things that had shown up in an anthology show by the name of Thriller. I believe that was the story The Weird Tailor was previously on Thriller, which I don't think ever really made it over to the UK. I had certainly never heard about it until I read Stephen King's Dan's Macabre and started reading around that. Thriller was presented by Boris Karloff, and that aired in the early 60s. So in the anthologies, they do a lot of recycling. And frankly, why not? Why not? Anyway, so I'm going to say that this one, not hugely well received, though.
Was it not?
No, not very well received here. I am going to cite for you, and I'll try and talk towards the microphone, which is something I often forget to do. Right. I think I've got it. I'm struggling to find it here. Right, forgive me while I look it up. I have got Kim Newman's Nightmare Movies here. And I was just looking up his assessment of Asylum, which was not hugely flattering. By the way, if you were interested in the American title for Asylum, it was released there as House of Crazies. Hopefully that didn't stop anyone finding it.
I only care about what the Japanese call these films. Ever since Captain Supermarket.
I couldn't find the Japanese title. If anyone can find the Japanese title for this,
I would say, chat, why don't you give us what you think they would call this film in Japan? Let's have some suggestions, shall we?
Give us your suggestions, chat. Here we go. So I've got Kim Newman's assessment here from the 1988 edition of Nightmare Movies. Hammer's chief rival, Amicus Productions, were less hampered by period trappings, but equally afflicted by the idea shortage. They exacerbated the repetition problem by specialising in anthology movies: The House That Dripped Blood, Asylum, Tales from the Crypt, The Vault of Horror, and From Beyond the Grave, and that's only a few of them. That's my own interjection at the end there. The overall impression is of about 50 mini-movies in which something supernaturally horrid happens to an embarrassed guest star. Savage. Absolutely savage. Perhaps the zenith of Amicus's spotty output is Freddie Francis's Tales from the Crypt, which draws its nasty anecdotes from the 1950s EC comics that were to be such an important influence on American splatter movies, and is memorable for Joan Collins getting strangled by Santa Claus, Peter Cushing returning from the grave as an Isla School, and Nigel Patrick being chased by a starving Alsatian down a narrow corridor lined with razor blades. Oof. Sounds a bit rough there. I haven't seen that last one, but I'm not sure I fancy it, to be honest. That's pretty hardcore stuff. So Kim Newman, I feel, going a bit harsh on that there, a bit harsh. And I think there are some aspects of this that make it a bit more interesting, a bit more worth delving into. But before we do that, I will, of course, implore you to be smashing the like. Hey, yes, I'm glad you're able to stay for the whole stream. I hope you like this one. We're still sort of in the early phases of it, so you haven't missed much. You're absolutely grand. TCG, I'm going to ask you to do. Do you want to give people the brief overview, the quick pint of Guinness summary of the film?
Yeah, sure.
Just roughly what happens in each story would be grand.
So, a gentleman with a lovely haircut goes to an asylum. Essentially, he has got a job interview, and he's speaking to a man in a wheelchair about said job interview. They're a bit conflicted in terms of how they believe the patient should be treated. Wheelchair man is saying that they can't be helped, redeemable. Man with stylish hairstyle says that I will show them love and compassion, and we will make them better. Give them a chance. Come on, guys. We need to be kind and open and tolerant. So he's like, okay, well, one of the doctors is now one of the patients. Okay, I'm going to set you a challenge. If you want this job, you need to go upstairs and you need to figure out which one is the Doctor. And he says, easy, fine, let's do it. So he goes upstairs. He gets let in by one of the orderlies, and one by one he goes in and meets the patients, and the patients then tell them their story. But he, and then at the end of it, he needs to try and figure out which one it is, essentially. But there is a shocking plot twist, which I won't spoil now, but we'll spoil at the end. But yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, that's a premise. Can you find which of the patients is Dr. Starr? Dun, dun, dun. There is a bit of a literary twist on this that Robert Bloch threw in that I wouldn't have picked up I wouldn't have picked up on it if it weren't for Kim Newman. So he may have savaged Amicus. He may have underrated them a bit, in my opinion. But he did make a very interesting point about one of the influences. There is an Edgar Allan Poe allusion here. So this idea of the inmates running the asylum, the patients escape and kill the doctors, etc. It's a bit of an old idea. It turns up in an early Poe story, The System of Dr. Tar and Professor Feather.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Tar. Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Tar, Dr. Star. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. We're rhyming now.
Yes, he's
Sucked a. Oh no! Wait. Okay. No, not that one.
No, wait. No, he's making a nice literary allusion. See, we've already upgraded it and made this a classy movie. Maybe. All right. And yeah, it's I'd say a pretty novel framework. He's got a good reason to go in and assess all these patients. I liked it. I really liked it as a framing device, and the idea of which one is Dr. Starr kept me guessing. What do you think of the way they'd set this up?
I thought it was all right. I thought it was a bit odd that he basically had to play a game of Guess Who, but I mean, it's fine. Could be, it's fine filler for the main stories, which of course are the stories of that the inmates tell. But yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was all right. It was suitable. It worked enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, we've been watching these we've been working our way through horror anthologies through oh gosh, I can't speak tonight, through the ages. And I think at this point we're not just doing straight up, here's a story, then here's a story, then here's a story. We've got the framing devices fully in place, and I think this is a little more evolved than Dr. Terror's House of Horror. Whereas as much as I liked it, it was pretty much, let me tell you a fortune. Now you. It was very undisguised. Whereas this it's almost, how can I say? It's obviously an anthology, but the wraparound story's got quite a bit of heft to it. It's got its own hook that keeps it interesting, I think, throughout. Like the whole time you're wondering about the Dr. Starr thing.
Yeah, it does make you think, doesn't it? It does make you sort of join in the game, if you will. Because that's the thing as well, like, because he couldn't ask any questions, could he? It was like literally he wasn't allowed to ask any questions, like get any hints, any background knowledge of the patients or anything like that would help him in his goal to identify who it was. So you're working with the same knowledge as the I'd like to give people as Mr. Haircut over there. But again, I felt like it was more filler than anything. I did kind of feel like it was just basically like a plot device just to get from one story to the other.
It 100% is.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything. Because hang on, which was the one with the golfers? One who dies?
Dead of Night.
Dead of Night, because they did the anthology there, and I felt like if we're talking anthologies with a solid story sort of overarching story. Like that one, I quite liked. But this felt very much like, okay, well, how are we going to get from one story to another? We'll just play Guess Who. Okay, cool. Like I say, it worked enough for me, because essentially, you know, it's under the guise of a job interview. You know, if you can identify this patient, then clearly, you know, your method of love and compassion is something that would probably be beneficial here. So we will hire you. But it was a bit, but it worked. But it could have been better.
It's fair enough. Okay, you have made me very glad I didn't go for Tales from the Crypt then.
Okay.
That is even less, or maybe you would like it if you don't like the wraparound stories as much where they're not as fully developed as they are in Dead of Night. Maybe you'd prefer Tales from the Crypt, because that is pretty much a bunch of strangers in a mysterious situation basically say, "So how did you get here?" Well, how did you get here? And my memory is that's as much setup as there is.
It's basically basically like Saw.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, they do get through the stories much quicker that way. So if you've got no patience for the wraparound story, that one might work better for you.
Yeah, I just feel like if you're gonna have these sort of like wraparound stories or this overarching theme like in between, you know, I do kind of feel like it's quite tricky to do, because you only have a short time, don't you, between anthology stories. So I appreciate it can be quite tricky to try and fill in another story within stories. But like I say, I mean, it works, but it definitely wasn't like, I don't think it was one of my favourites.
No,
although I did like the twist though.
Yeah,
I did like the
it's
twist.
a tricky one to do. It's a very tricky one. I mean, I think we're going to see only a few examples where the wraparound story is so good that you're just sort of, you'll forgive it. I think Black Mirror's White Christmas special is probably one of those examples.
Yeah.
Where it's like the wraparound story and the other stories influenced each other and fed into each other and then made one wonderful whole.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say about this, rather than having the old game of Guess Who, I mean, it wouldn't have... Nothing of value would have been lost had the guy just been like, "Can I go and see the patients to understand who you've got here?" And him being like, "Yeah," and then the orderly just takes him around each room and he asks the questions, and then at the end, you know, you can still have the same twist at the end, but essentially he's just going around and speaking to the patients. Do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to. The whole sort of, you know, guess who Dr. Byron is. You don't really need it. You don't.
No, and in fairness, it's not an uncommon trope, as we showed. It goes back to Poe. Lots of the others feature this idea, but in fact, even at Severance, if you'll remember, one of the explanations for what was going on was an asylum where the inmates broke out and imprisoned the doctors. So but I mean, before we go into the stories, it's kind of there's some interesting stuff about that framing. Like, as you picked up, this is a clash of ideas. It's what you might call a bit of the vision of the anointed versus the constrained vision. The we can help them, just love and affection and care. We'll do it in dignity, and a very embittered sort of chap who speaks from experience and says, no, there's no helping them. It's quite an interesting contrast of worldviews, and I really love the line that the Dr. Rutherford drops as I keep just wanting to say Robert Powell. I should remember the character name, but I'm just thinking Robert Powell. He's Dr. Martin. I'll try and remember Dr. Martin. He basically says, look, you're fine to treat old ladies who've got a bit of a touch of the fainting, just need a brandy, and to moan about their husbands, but you're a long way from Harley Street here, and I love that. You're a long way from Harley Street here. And maybe I'm reaching, but I just felt that sort of clash of visions gave it, even if it's this whole thing is just a a setup to get you to the stories. I felt that it put a bit of meat on the bones.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, again, excuse me, it's quite cool to have this sort of conflicting, this confrontation at the beginning, because you've got two people in the same field who essentially just come from different times. I mean, like you said, you've got the old way of doing things, you've got the current way, and it's, I don't know, and it's absolutely right that in some situations, you can, be a bit compassionate and a bit, nicey, lovey, a bit lovey-dovey, bit, give them the softy approach. But then there's other people that, just, you're not gonna, that's never going to work. They are a danger to themselves and others, and the best thing for them is to be as far away from society as possible. And both are right in that instance, but it's specific to this particular asylum. What would be the best approach? And it's just, I suppose it depends on the asylum, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, that is an interesting point. I mean, if you don't mind me taking the reins a bit, just cool. Just because we've got some context that I think we don't. It's hard for us to get because we're in current year, 2023. This is made in 1972, and the landscape is completely different. And the presence of asylums was actually quite a hot issue at the time, which is easily forgotten. I mean, even the fact that you have asylums as they exist here is not something we really have in the landscape anymore. I will try and go to a... Oh gosh, I'm struggling. I think I might just have to... I'm looking for a nice visual of the house, and I'm not sure I have one. Okay, we're going to have to go with the one from the outside. Apologies, folks. All right, where are we? So you can hopefully get a bit of an idea. It's basically a massive manor out in the country. It's not what we have today. And in 1961, there was a massive scandal in Britain called the Ely Hospital scandal. Crikey, it even looks, I'm just looking now, it looks quite a lot like the building they used. So that was in Cardiff, and basically it was an asylum where a huge array of mistreatment was happening. It's sort of inhumane treatment, very lack of dignity, poor conditions. Just I believe it was the Sun exposed it, and it brought about a huge conversation about these places which were out of the way, out of sight, out of mind, and basically inhumane treatment had started to occur there on a massive basis, basically because it was far out of common sight, and the patients weren't exactly able to advocate for themselves. And so a massive conversation started about, should you keep the asylums? As he is saying, it was 50 years ago. I know.
Mental, isn't it?
It's totally crazy. It's totally crazy. This is now a 51-year-old movie. Shocking. So there were concerns. There was a move to shut down these asylums, but there was an ongoing debate about what you do about them. And I found that in 1961, so basically just around the Ely Hospital scandal, the Minister of Health at the time was active on it, a minister by the name of Enoch Powell.
Oh, God.
So I just thought I'd read a bit from Simon Heffer's Like the Roman, The Life of Enoch Powell, which goes into this a little bit. And I've only bloomin' lost the page. Crikey. I've actually lost the page. Oh, dear. Hang on, I'm going to have to look it up again. So I'll tell you, he made a speech to the... I can't believe it. I had it. I had it right there. Deinstitutionalization. Where are we? Oh, dear.
just so that I'm I'm not being silly. Enoch Powell did the Rivers of Blood speech, didn't he?
Yeah, that's a guy.
Yeah. Okay.
He was Minister for Health. Oh gosh, I was doing like 282. Got it. Right, there we go. Sorry, folks. Absolute boomer moment. Could not find the page. Right, so this is from 1961 after he was concerned about the Ely scandal. He gave a speech called the Water Tower speech, which is quite interesting, and he was quite optimistic, basically. There had been warnings made to... Sorry, I'll make sure I speak to the microphone. Okay, I'll just read the paragraph in a bit. Powell attempted to move to other items on his ministry's agenda. Speaking to the National Association for Mental Health on 9th of March, he argued, I'll skip a bit. So he wanted patients to be moved into general hospitals and not asylums. He did not want the asylums. He made a pioneering call for more community care, saying the old asylums would be pulled down. And he's even saying, if we're going to make a mistake, he was serious about it. He said, if we're going to err, we should err on the side of going too far, like borderline burn them down if you have to. He really did not want them. Once our hospital plan was launched, Powell would deal with community care in greater detail, not merely out of compassion, but because of his recognition that although most of his ministry's budget was spent in the hospital service was but a small part of the general health services. There had been warnings made to Parliament ever since the NHS's foundation in 1948 that a scandal would erupt out of the mental hospitals, and there had been urgings to look at the wider possibilities for the treatment of such patients in the community, made possible by the development of new drugs that could suppress the symptoms of mental illness. The government had already committed itself to community-based care, but no action had been taken, which is why Powell was really trying to push it forward, basically. They talked about it for a long time, but done nothing. Even though, as Timmins records, the population of the asylums had been falling ever since 1954, when the new main drug, Largactil, became available, Powell's advisors projected that by 1975 the population would halve to 75,000, and this gave him the scope needed for resolute action. He had visited the hospitals. He found them absolutely inhuman and thought it just wasn't right to keep people in those conditions. But he was also, I think, a bit swayed by the science and the models telling him that medical advances would basically take care of the need for asylums. So that was driving him a bit. He was a bit optimistic there, and maybe we're not used to. It's kind of interesting to think of Enoch Powell being sort of overcome with optimism.
Well, yeah, and even having a bit of a compassionate side, I suppose. Well, I don't know. I suppose that's not fair, but if I didn't know about that, I would have assumed that Powell would have been pro asylum. Yeah, my issue has always been, with I'm all good for people having the medical sort of treatments and things like that to stave off all like the severe mental illnesses and things like that. But my primary concern is you gotta rely on the people taking the drugs, and I mean, I don't know if anybody has seen my video on Emily Jones or Eltiona Skana, that poor little 8-year-old girl who got murdered by an asylum seeker. Funnily enough, she stopped taking her meds, and for some reason our government or our health services decided that we could trust her in taking her own medication, and that just didn't happen. And it's like, why do we, if you got to put someone on, antipsychotic drugs of any kind, you make sure that you're pulling their trousers down, you sticking that needle up their backside and administering it yourself, because the thing is, you hear it so often, don't you? Like where people stop taking the medication because they truly believe in themselves that they're fine now. They're not going to be that they're fine. They don't need the drugs anymore. It's all good. And then, lo and behold, you get some tragedy. You hear that there's a tragedy on the news, and it could have easily been prevented.
Yeah.
Asylums had their place. Whether or not they were the right thing. Whether they'd be the right thing nowadays, or whether they could be utilised differently is another thing. But I don't know. I mean,
It's a tricky one. I mean, I think Rutherford is almost more balanced, to be honest, because he basically says that, in the stuff of, you can take care of certain problems, but there are some problems only I can take care of.
Yeah.
Some problems you can only fix with the asylum, which is kind of balanced, really.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, I'll use the example of my brother. Okay. I mean, he's not the kind of person that would be in an asylum, who should be in an asylum. He shouldn't be removed from society because he doesn't pose a threat. You know what I mean? But there were people like him not that long ago who would have just been put in there and ostracised from society. Simple as.
People with type 1 diabetes as well, before the insulin treatments were
Wait, what?
approved. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But they would become, when they haven't figured out insulin therapy, then you've basically got people who act extremely erratic.
Oh, wow.
And they ended up in there. What I've got on screen there is one of a series of drawings that your man looks at as he goes up the stairs to meet the patients, and it's a bit of balance because they're all sort of old cartoons of like the Bedlam hospital days, which they're basically, I find them very unsettling. They're showing that mistreatment. They're showing that the way it used to be, and I won't derail the stream with it, but like the way things ran in Bethlehem were grim and comically grim. Almost like you could actually, people would go and view them for entertainment, which is not really something I want to think about. It makes the stream a bit more maudlin than it should be. But I think it's important that Dr. Martin here looks at them and you sort of see his motivation. Like, he's horrified by this.
Is he
and
horrified?
This is the ugly side. I think he is.
Is he? I'm sorry. His reaction to those pictures and the booming orchestral music playing at the time, for me, it don't line up. I mean, you're getting this massive dramatic music, da 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 da, as you look at these pictures, and then you sort of pan to his face, like right close up, and it's just sort of like, and then moves on to the next one. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It doesn't line up with me.
You make a good point. Yeah, it does. It does misalign a little bit. I should just say quickly here. John Garth, thank you very much for the $2. Yeah, pint for gads. Good. You are toasting him. I hope you're toasting my lad now.
It's pretty much how much it costs these days for a pint as well. So,
oof. London prices, man. London prices.
Yeah.
But yeah, much appreciated. And yeah, if you haven't raised a glass, you can take the opportunity now. Much appreciated, John. Yeah, so there is a bit of tonal inconsistency there, definitely.
I didn't get what he was, what that scene was trying to convey. I'm glad you did, because that makes sense. I didn't get it. Maybe
it was sort of building anticipation, because he's just going through and looking at them, and they are. I think it would make him more resolute, because he absolutely objects to this style of treatment. And for him, I think the way Rutherford is doing things is basically the Bethlehem method, just cruel, arcane, etc. And he goes up determined to show that he can do it better.
Yeah.
But yeah, the music did make it a bit weird.
It was that, and like I say, the reactions to it was just the reactions to the pictures. It was just like nothing lined up for me. But that's just me. I was going to say something else, but I've forgotten now. Never mind. Oh no, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I say to a degree, I was on this guy's side. In that, I think with people like that, there is, again, I feel like it's kind of case by case. You don't have to be an absolute arse to people who are in those conditions, who are in that situation. You can have the compassion, you can have the kindness and things like that, but there's a balance, isn't there? And I think you've got two people who essentially don't have that balance. One is either all kindness and compassion, the other one is, like you say, the old method. But there's no sort of like middle guy who says, we can be firm, but we can also be compassionate.
Yeah, that's fair. That is a pretty.
But then who wants a centrist in their videos? Am I right?
Exactly, British BTFO'd once again.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, there's this sort of. I like the vibe that they weren't just like ideologues. Like, I'm the compassionate one, and I'm the I'm the rough one. It's slightly nuanced by the fact that he is so much younger. Martin is so much younger, and Rutherford is just like, no, I am wary. I used to think what you thought 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very. I think it puts a bit of meat on the bone here, but setting in the context here. So that this would have been a lively issue. It wasn't until Margaret Thatcher's premiership in the 80s that care in the community, aka the deinstitutionalization, the closing of the asylums, happened. This was a live topic when they're making this film, and I wonder if it sort of fed into the debate a little bit.
Yeah.
But going on from that, I mean, we should actually talk about the stories. This isn't the Midnight Club. We care about the stories in our anthologies. There's only a few of them. It's quite the right balance. I mean, of them, I don't have to get too in depth, but is there one you'd like to lead in with? Is there one that particularly stood out to you?
So I was reading GB's comment about me slipping into a few decades later having a Bud Light. You'll never catch me with a Bud Light, mate. I am fucking teetotal, bruv. I'm teetotal, bruv. Which one stood out for me? So do you know what? I quite liked the second one. The Taylor story. Yes. I quite like that one. That was my favourite. The other two were a bit daft, I'll say, but in a good way. Like, what was it? It was the first one when the guy's done chopping up his wife, and then he's about to close the freezer, and he's just like, I can't even do it in a straight face.
Yes.
Rest in pieces.
Bless. It's like, I suppose we'll briefly tell you what. I'll briefly go over them in order. So just the shorter, because you will notice a weird thing with this, folks. Of the stories, 3 of the 4 are about basically like golems, aka inanimate things becoming animate in all sorts of ways, but they are all golems basically. So like story 1, a cheating husband hacks up his wife, puts her in the freezer, cuts to pieces, but her interest in witch doctory means that her amulet brings her body parts back to life, and then they manage to off the husband and his lover
No, didn't off the lover.
Sorry, did not off the
No.
lover. Got her to try and save herself when that hand jumps onto her face. She has to hack it off, and I've got that visual up there. After hiding the face for the whole story, she finally shows you this, and yeah, I do feel that they kind of, it's a bit tame.
Yeah.
I know there are makeup limitations, but I think from what we're shown on screen as she attempts to save herself from the hand that is attacking her, I would expect a fair bit more.
Yeah, like one eye, half a nose.
Yeah.
Basically what you're saying is she should look like Peter Porco. There you go. Just showed one of my videos.
Yeah, I would expect some major, like, I want that nose missing. Like,
yeah.
I realise there's not much you can do, but
for those who don't know, he took 17 axe blows to the face by his son. Survived. Woke up in the morning and went through his morning routine. Washed his face, went to the toilet, went downstairs, put the dishes away, made himself a coffee, went outside, locked him to get the newspaper, locked himself out, went to go and get the spare key from under a rock, went inside, shut the door behind him, dropped dead.
Damn. That's some locked door mystery stuff.
His brain was so damaged that his brain couldn't process the trauma that his face went through. Yeah, it was a state. And there's a video on YouTube actually where there was this guy who actually recreated the movements of Peter Porco of that morning. I think I linked it in the original video, but yeah, it's weird how that happened.
Yeah, gosh, that is absolutely bizarre.
Yeah.
John Garth makes a really good point. Yeah, should have looked like the lady in Terrifier. That is a kind of facial prosthetic work that I wanted to see. But the alternative, just if she imagined it all, what would you prefer out of the two, TCG? All in a Mind or absolute facial carnage?
Nah, it's got to be absolute facial carnage because you could say it's self-inflicted, even still.
Yeah, you still got the doubt. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm a gore hound.
Because it's the question, it's the question at the end of the day, isn't it? Is what she's saying true or not? Because I mean, if you look at the third story, for example, that's clearly a case where, a woman is having psychotic delusions. Whereas with the first two, it is open to interpret. It's open to debate, isn't it? And as you know, with the fourth, which isn't really an anthology story, but the fourth one does sort of end up being real. So you kind of think, okay, maybe the other first, because again, you can't really say it with the third, but with the first two, you kind of like, actually, was that the case?
Yeah. Yeah, the element for doubt, as you say, does get removed in the fourth. And I suppose that's also challenging for Martin, who would, I think, want the very rationalist view. Whereas I think Rutherford is a bit more open to the idea that there's just spooky stuff out there. Lock it up and try not to be worried by it.
Yeah.
There's something else I liked from this was you just got the sense in 1972 of how big a deal it was that they had a freezer.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, we just had it installed. Yeah, I know. Excuse me. Yeah. I've just this second had it installed. What you mean? You plugged it in?
Yeah. Well, you just get this. It's hard for us, but it's that's a luxury good. Okay, I mean, you get from looking around by how nice their place is, but it's the way they assume we would know from the freezer that it's big money's been spent on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a big freezer as well,
Yeah, it was. I love this visual. it's so menacing. Like, they managed to be quite tame with this. You know, it's a beheading. There's no blood whatsoever, but just this visual, I really liked.
Yeah, I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah. The second story, so once again, it's a golem. It's an inanimate one. I mean, the fact that it's a Jewish tailor makes it much more of a golem story, but also I think a lot more Lovecraftian.
Yeah.
Which I really like. This is my favourite of the lot. And you said it was your favourite too.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I just want to wholesome chicken wranglers. Just going back to my little story. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The wife was attacked, and just to add to that, she not only did she survive, but she actually believes that her son wasn't responsible, even though he clearly was. But yeah, no, this one is definitely my favourite one. The Lovecraftian theme to it. I love the book that he's got, which is blatantly the Necronomicon. And I've just recently binge watched Evil Dead, Ash versus Evil Dead, and I've got a totally legal copy of Evil Dead Rises, I think it is. So I need to watch that. Yeah, Bruce Campbell's brilliant in Ash versus Evil Dead. Absolutely, he's top.
Recommended.
He is top banana. Has a little bit of the message in it, but he is.
Everyone says
brilliant.
it like the message.
It's like oh my god. There's it's just one scene. Sorry, I've completely derailed. But there's one bit where his car's gone. His car got stolen. Oh yeah, that's right. And the Necronomicon was in the car, and one of the characters is like, really, we need to get the book, and he's obviously only bothered about his car, and he's like, I need to know my car. She's like, don't you mean the book? And he's like, yeah, that's what I said, car. Well, no, sorry, I meant car. But he's just so like on it.
I mean, Bruce Campbell can sell anything.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, honestly, I know if you can, and even the side characters that he runs with. I mean, we like them. We do like them. We do like them. They are fun. It's fun. There's a little bit of message in it, but I mean, not nowhere near enough to take it away. It's a shame that it only lasted 3 seasons, though. It really is.
It's not bad though. 3.
Well, it ended because he actually he tweeted out today. Funnily enough, he's 65, and so he was like, I'm 65 now. I'm retiring. But yeah, it was a mixture of poor ratings from the second season and also not health complications, but you know he's getting on a bit, and you know doing the scenes and the things that were required of him, you know, just taking its toll a little bit. So yeah, he had to hang up the old boomstick and chainsaw.
I'm seeing a fair bit of appreciation for Ash versus.
There you go. If Yiz can stand it,
yeah,
then you know it's good. Then you know it's good because
anyone
she has
else
high
in
standards.
Chat? Anyone else? Let me know. I mean, I'm pretty sold. I fancy checking it out.
You have to.
Go on.
Honestly, I am kicking myself that I didn't give it the time of day when it first came out.
Nice. All right, you've sold me. Do you want to give people a quick just a quick overview of what happens in this one?
So yeah, this guy's having a bit of troubles. He's a tailor. He does the old stitching and the custom made suits, but times have changed and his services aren't quite as required as they once were. Time has moved on, and his landlord has turned up and says, I want the rent money, and he's like, but I haven't got it. I can't do the accent, but and he's like, you need to give me the money by the end of the week, otherwise you're out on your arse. And so he's like, oh man, what are we gonna do? And then just then General Tarkov enters the shop, and he says, I need 1 million suits developed for my stormtroopers, and I need them by Friday. And he says, yes sir, of course. Speaking of which, does Darth Vader want anything done? And he says, actually yes, he has some he got a hole in his cape the other week after fighting Yoda, so he'll need that stitched up too, if you wouldn't mind. No, what actually happens is General Tarkov comes in and he says, I need a suit made for my son. It's a birthday. It's a gift for him. And he says, okay, yeah, I can do that for you. And he's like, right, but you have the specific set of instructions. You must follow these instructions to the letter and no deviating. And he's like, okay, cool. He's like, oh man, I've got to work after midnight. And he's like, well, them's the rules, you know, I don't make them and I don't want you to break them. And he's like, okay, cool, I'll have the suit ready by Friday. He's like, sweet, see you then. And he's like, well, what payment? He's like, you know what? I'm going to give you £200. And he's like, oh, £200? Oh my God, that's like more than I owe in rent. We're saved. So he makes the suit.
I'm going to look what that was for today.
So yeah, so he makes the suit to the letter. There is one instance where he cuts himself and a bit of the blood lands on the fabric, but oh my, this fabric it completely absorbs the blood, and it's like it never dropped on it. And this suit is very, very shiny. It's very illuminating. It's very bright, and it's almost like there's loads of LEDs stuck on it, or someone's got a lamp over it and just sort of like turning it up and down, you know, adjusting the brightness. Anyway, gets the suit done.
Reflective material, very special material.
Yeah. Anyway, so he gets the suit done. He goes to see General Tarkin, and then he's like, "Oh, it's a nice place you got here." And he's like, "Yeah, cool." And he's like, "Oh, what's this? Oh, this is a book. Oh, right, cool." He's like, can I have my £200 then, mate? And he goes, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll send you a check." And he's like, "But sir, I need the cash." It's like, "You wouldn't understand, you're a rich man." And it turns out the rich man, General Tarkin, actually got sacked by Darth Vader the other week for gross misconduct, and he is no longer an employee and therefore has no money. And apparently he had to sell all of his goods to pay the rent and also buy this spooky book. He then goes, the tailor then goes through this door, sees a man laying dead in a coffin, assumes that General Tarkin murdered the person, and it turns out it's the son. And the suit was for the son so that General Tarkin could bring back to life his son, so that they could overthrow Darth Vader and rule the Empire.
Mr. GB is on the money.
Very true. Very true.
Good call. Yeah. I just want to take a moment on this, just because when he goes to the house, I've got this saved as the A12. Gorgeous. This shot, like this is.
Oh yeah.
This beat The Exorcist to the screen. This looks like The Exorcist to me.
Yes, but this was before, wasn't it?
It was 1 year before.
There you go. Exorcist, dirty rip-off.
Yeah, I love it. It's so good. The lighting in this, I mean, they're all different, but oof. Yeah, I saved this shot because it was beautiful. In fact, I saved quite a lot of shots. The director, I don't think we actually said, is Roy Ward Baker, who did the well-known A Night to Remember.
Oh, never seen it.
And,
have we?
One of the early Titanic movies, and
right.
Also he was an assistant director on Alfred Hitchcock's Lady Vanishes, the 1938 version of it,
okay.
Which I'm a bit of a fan of. So, classy chap. Anyway, sorry, I cut you off. He's gone into the house and discovered the son's body.
Yeah, and then a fight ensues, and it turns, and unfortunately General Tarkin takes one for the team, and he dead. So the tailor takes the book and the suit back to the shop, and he's like, "We need to burn it. We need to burn it all." And then he's like, "My darling, my love, take the suit and burn it." And she does what any woman would do and ignore clear instructions, and she puts it on the mannequin that's up on display. He's like, "Woman, I told you clearly, burn it." And she's like, "Oh, but it looks so pretty." And he's like, "Nah, we gotta burn it, you know." She's like, but the man," and he's like, "Yeah, I killed him. It was an accident, honest." And she's like, but you know, you can go to the police, you know, show them the book. That will somehow prove your innocence. I don't know how the book will, but unless the book was a witness and Ace Attorney was going to cross-examine it, I don't know how that would work. But yeah, apparently the book would. But so anyway, she says, no, I'm going to phone the police. They get into a bit of a rough and tumble. And then, oh no, the mannequin. I can't remember the mannequin's name, by the way. If you can remember it, that would.
Gosh, what was it?
I don't know. I'm going to call it Otto. I think it was something. I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, anyway, the mannequin comes to life and sort of waddles over to the tailor and starts throttling him. And then, yeah,
dodgy mustache on it. As well.
I know. And then, yeah, it fades back to him, and he's like, you know, the mannequin, it's still out there somewhere. We have to find it. And I'm just thinking to myself, mate, like, he's wearing. Have you checked any showings of Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat? Because I'm sure he would. I'm pretty sure he's performing there at the moment, because that is the only place where he could be wearing a suit like that and not look out of place.
It's special. It's an odd effect.
Yeah,
it's a really odd effect. You're like,
I liked it. I did like it, because it is quite like it's weird how they do it, and obviously, you know, it's kind of like a supernatural thing. So, and again, you know, the constraints at the time. I quite like this, but yeah, I mean, this story for me was by far the best one.
Excellent. I'm so glad you said that. I'm with you. I'm with you on it. It's what was it about this in particular? I assume it's not just the mustache and wonderful sideburns. Or we might have lost TCG on that one.
You haven't. I've got a coughing fit. Bear with.
Oh no! All right, I will sing the praises. Why I love this one, frankly, I just well, it's all the gorgeous photography. Let's go to Cushing's entrance again, because my goodness. I mean, the first one I liked. It had a certain amount of charm. The first story was very sort of suburban, standard. There was an interesting thing where there was quite mild colours and then just a few very prominent red items. But ultimately, visually, it wasn't as interesting. Whereas this, the playing with the light and shadow, the older setting, this lives for me. And I think we're also seeing very much Robert Bloch's appreciation of Lovecraft coming through here. This is a Lovecraftian story. It is someone recounting, stumbling across some ancient knowledge that they don't understand. That is secondhand to a story, and they only get a glimpse of the true insanity that they can't get their head around. And then they just want to burn it all. It is pure, concentrated Lovecraft. Incidentally, if you're wondering what that $200 suit costs, sorry, £200,
oh, yeah.
Shocking. It was £2,200 in today's money.
Nice.
Not bad.
Sorry, I just had a really scratchy throat moment. That's why I couldn't talk.
That's all right. That's all right.
My boy, bless him, he's going to get me a drink. He's a superstar, he is.
Oh, bless. Yeah. I'm hoping that's the right inflation. I'm assuming this is a story from the time. It's not like the chap had been there for ages. But, yeah, it still seems like a pretty decent amount of money. I like the comment that Enred made. Suit for Dracula cycles again, absolutely. Yeah, it's very special. They leave off. They don't really show you what happens, but this is, I mean, just you feel for the guy. He's a lot more relatable.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a hard worker, and you know, as I say, times have moved on now. You know what he does is very sort of love and care goes into his craft. You know, whereas nowadays people can go and get their suits cheaply made, you know, mass produced, and you know it's more of a convenience these days.
Yeah, there's this real sort of love for the old world in that.
Yeah,
and I think we can be very sympathetic to it. I certainly am. It's just it pulled on my heartstrings, you know.
Absolutely.
Doesn't he even talk about the sort of industrialization of the suits? and the production. Everyone just wants them mass produced. Very, very fitting to pick up again by, in a week after the sad passing of Uncle Ted. Interesting point of trivia here from Years. So you're saying the reason it looks great is the director of photography was industry legend Dennis Coop, who did director of photography for dozens of films, including the first 2 Superman movies. That'd do it.
Nice.
Crikey, that would do it. That would explain it. And it's not the highest rated of the Amicus productions, so I don't get why. For me, this is a standout, and the visuals are a big part of it, and that would explain it. That would explain a lot of it. That's fantastic. Yeah. This one has just got a lot of heart in it, a lot of pathos, and it also works so much for Dr. Martin's position. Like, I think seeing that, he clearly thinks that your man here, Bruno, is not someone who should be in an asylum. It's it's a nice bit of variety. It's, even though we've once again got a golem story, an inanimate becoming inanimate in a horrifying way, it lands very different.
Yeah, I mean, this is an example of a guy who shouldn't be, who really shouldn't be there. I mean, although they, then again, he is talking about mannequins coming to life and throttling him, and he did well, he didn't murder somebody, but he did kill somebody. So he shouldn't be walking the streets as such. Although, mind you, I mean, as I say, I mean, it was kind of like an accidental killing, so I mean, manslaughter, I suppose. A few years, I guess. I don't know. And it was actually self-defense, and I suppose it was self-defense as well. Actually, no, the guy should be walking free. He should be making his suits. He should be paying his rent.
People didn't understand. They didn't believe Manny the mannequin.
Yeah,
did the thing.
All right, I need to find his name now. That's gonna bug me.
All right. You look for that, and I'll. I can do the intro for the next story. Mostly because I want to show Charlotte Rampling. I'm sure, chat, if you did your homework, you appreciated this story. Charlotte Rampling in fine form. Not just her, but Britt Eklund as well. Oh, you love to see it. You love to see it. This is an interesting one. Charlotte here. I'm not going to bother with lots of names. You know how I am. Charlotte's picked up, brought home from treatment, and the theory is that she was probably institutionalized. It is unspecified why, and she's back, but she finds herself sort of infantilized. I've just got her here because she comes out in a suit and tie, which I found quite daring and quite interesting to remark on. She comes back, and the husband has hired a nurse for her, and the nurse basically starts controlling her. Basically, you're not.
I don't think that's a husband. I think that's a
brother.
Is it? Yes, a brother.
Oh, it might be. Okay. Oh, apologies.
Yeah, I mean,
apologies. You are right. Yes, apologies.
You sounded very disappointed. You're right.
I've watched a lot of Supernatural. I don't see why it can't be both. But anyway.
Oh no, it's just true. It's true. Actually, I've been watching that again as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm on season 2. I felt like, speaking of the infantilization, I think the choice of clothing for her was quite intentional, because it does sort of give off that schoolgirl vibe.
Yes, the school, sort of a schoolgirl vibe, but I think it also gives her a contrast, because once she's back in and starts taking the pills she'd hidden away, suddenly she starts seeing her friend Lucy again,
Yes.
her imaginary friend Lucy, played by Britt Ekland. Before we get this, she starts hearing things, and in a nice bit of directorial signalling, she sits in front of a mirror, and the mirror is broken into 3 pieces.
Yeah.
So signaling the sort of broken identity. It's a classic bit of directorial signaling, but gosh darn it, why not do it? Why not add that visual interest? This shot also makes it a bit unclear that it's Lucy, because the hair colour looks similar, and it's only in the next shot that you see, no, that is very, very much not her, very much a different person.
Yeah.
And Lucy's a bit of a bad influence on her. You start to get a feeling like this is the cause of the trouble. Lucy is her bad half, and she's not going to want to submit to being controlled by the brother and the nurse. And very interestingly, oh, by the way, I got this absolutely gorgeous shot from when she doses her brother to make him sleep.
Very nice.
I love that. Just off, beautiful bit of England there. Old China tea, fireplace, and something a little sinister going on. This is classic English horror. I absolutely love it. I had to save this shot. There's your DP coming through again. Dennis Coop. Absolute, he's delivering on this one. This is such a beautiful shot.
And they say the English don't season their food.
But something else noticeable about this, we got a real ramp up in violence in this one. When Lucy is offing the people who are going to keep Barbara down, keep Charlotte Rampling down, we not only come across the body with the bloody scissors in, we see an actual stabbing on the screen. Again, just the contrast to Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, where you saw absolutely nothing. It's quite the ramp up. And I'm happy to grass waifu up. She did jump and scream. And got offed.
Brilliant.
Always like to see that. So what did you think was going on in this one? It's a kind of a layered story, I think.
Yeah, I think from what I can recall, Lucy was trying to convince, I can't remember the character's name.
Barbara, I think.
Barbara, that's it, Barbara. That her brother was trying to get the family inheritance all to himself, and that to do that, she would need to be taken out of the picture. Like medical, not literally like sent to the shadow realm, but basically like you're crazy, you can't look after your own affairs, ergo I will like power of attorney you, essentially, and I'll take over all the assets and stuff like that, and you can be sent off to the asylum to rot and wither away. And she kind of buys that paranoia. But this for me was one of those where there's definitely an issue with Barbara. It's not something that's supernatural. That's my interpretation. This was very much an instance of a woman who was suffering from psychosis, maybe like maybe like split personality disorder, or like DID, or one of those things. Lucy was very much a figment of her imagination, and I don't think that the brother actually did have any sort of ill intentions. I think this was just something that was drummed up in her own mind, and so she disassociated her actions herself, and sort of like projected this character Lucy to then do the bad things so that she couldn't associate herself as being the one that done them. It was a bit convoluted for me. I'm sorry. I know Henriette said this was their favourite. For me, this one was a bit convoluted for my liking. Even I was mostly disappointed that we didn't get to see them les out. But I mean,
this is Dr. Terrible's House of Horrible or Twins of Evil.
Exactly. I just
trust me. When we get to Hammer Horror, you're going to see all of that stuff.
I mean, it's Pride Month. I mean, come on. I wanted to,
Oh dear.
I felt...
Well, I mean, let's be honest. It's not like they aren't signalling that stuff. This is
very much
the
so.
story is pitched to the Tegan and Sarah crowd.
Yeah,
I
mean,
like, that's another side of why Charlotte Rampling's in that rather nice-looking suit and tie combo.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sort of gave off signals that they were more than just friends. Yeah. The TCG is saying what we're all thinking, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's that obviously the contrast, they're chosen to contrast with each other. Lucy is very hands-on, and I was wondering if that is the vibe, the idea that it's a sort of dangerous sexuality. I mean, seeing as this is from Robert Bloch, who wrote Psycho, I mean, the sort of Norman Bates sort of sexual side is not really in the movie much, except for a sort of little insinuation when he's watching Marion getting showered. So he sort of gets a chance 12 years later to take a second shot at this.
Yeah. I mean, we will talk about it at some point. I'm sorry, but we're talking about like the signalling. Rope.
Yes.
And that's all I'm going to say. But
fair enough, folks. Yeah. Keep your eyes peeled. There's some very saucy viewings coming up soon. Which
there's an entire compilation video on YouTube.
I saw it.
I think I showed you it. Yeah. Anyway,
it was great. Sorry, we weren't derailed.
That's my fault. My fault. Because we're talking about like the sexual tension between two friends here, and they just literally reminded me of that. And yeah,
I wondered if it was trying to do like this might genuinely be a bit of a sort of, oof, you couldn't make that today sort of message, because Barbara sort of portrayed. I think the fact that she's in a suit is kind of the idea, like, you might want to take the man's role, like
masculine
is
role,
it sort of a comment on it would have been set just pre-second wave feminism, getting a bit feisty,
I think
pushing the message of break down the traditional roles. So that would have been the thing. And if Robert Bloch is looking at that and he's just sort of putting that image in there,
just putting the feelers out, innit? Yeah,
feelers out.
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, I mean, they definitely would have. They definitely would have let out, Maybe Asylum should have been made in 2022 or 2023, because they definitely would have. The subtle messaging certainly wouldn't be there. Let's say, but I think what was it? Yeah, it was 50 years ago, 51 years ago. It was very much a different time. People were a lot more prudish back then, and so you had to put the messaging in very subtly, I think, or imply things.
Very much so. This is long before, say, Jennifer's Body, where what was that? I've got to feel that was mid 2010s. I only saw it the once. I wasn't a fan of it, but where they basically said, all right, we're going to make this horror film with was it Megan Fox and I think it was Amanda Seyfried, and that's a nice script and all. Thank you, Diablo Cody. Now that Juno has won an Oscar, we'll make all of your scripts. This one's great, nice horror. Can they les off?
Yeah.
I know it's random. I know it's only one scene, but if they do it in that one scene, we can put it in the trailer.
Nice. Yes.
The only bit I remember. Anyway, so. Anyone else flashing back to Cruel Intentions?
Oh, Sarah Michelle Gellar was my man. And when I was a teenager, even
You
even
watch
now,
Buffy
she's
for the writing.
oh, unironically, but she's just a bonus, Phrasing.
Yes. Anyway, let's keep it family friendly. I think there's a good chance that there's a little bit of that reactionary vibe in here, a little bit of that sort of dangerous feminine energy. I don't know what direction people might take that in, but it could be in there. I think there's a little bit of that in there about sort of the sort of chaotic, passionate side of women needing a little bit of control because it can get out of hand. A message that would probably not turn up in a modern remake, although the letting off would be in there. So depends what your preference is.
Yeah. Well,
I'll say interesting one that had so much more violence in it. Quite a way.
Yeah. Bit of an empowering thing, but again, she just bollocks everything up, didn't she? Really. She ended up exactly where she thought her brother wanted her to be, and nobody got the inheritance.
We like our irony. It's a good twist. It's a good twist. It also ends with the maniacal cackling.
Yeah.
A lot of the stories here leaned on the end with maniacal laughter quite a bit. Yeah, I think they were fond of that.
Bit of a trope.
They lead on it a bit. I guess it is just one of those tropes with madness that they went for at the time.
Oh yeah. Oh my god! Especially with the twist at the end, that laughter.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So that leads us on to the Mecha Trump story, which is effectively the lead into just closing off the whole film. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, this. I'm sorry. I'm just picturing like that Mecha Trump with a little pull string on the back, and if you pull it back, he's like, "We will make Europe pay their fair share."
I'd love to hear the quotes on that. I would.
Yeah.
I would love it.
Yeah, this guy. There isn't even a story behind this one. He just goes into the room. He speaks to the doctor. He is a fellow doctor, and he is making little mecha trumps, and the reason for that is because he's going to transfer his consciousness into the mecha trump, and he's going to make America great again by sneaking up behind Joe Biden and throwing a scalpel into the back of his neck in Minecraft.
It was one of those things where it was just the classic 70s thing. Hang on, I'll just get this up quick.
It's just really funny, right? When he was like, "I'm making these little machines, these little things. They're battery operated, right? Okay, fair enough." And it's like, but they're going to be like literal copies of me. And I'm thinking, oh my god, how's he going to do that? And he's just like, "I'm going to look at it really hard, and I'm going to concentrate super hard, and my consciousness will transfer into it." Like, really? I'm going to think really hard.
They went with it. They leaned into it.
And for some reason, it bloody worked.
It is, once again, a story about an inanimate object becoming animate, but this time it's a little Trump bot, and we love it. It's greatest. I can't get enough of it. It's so funny. As we said, Herbert Lom filmed his bit in an afternoon and got out of there.
Yeah, don't blame him.
In fairness, like, kudos to them. This is an 88-minute film. It is concise. They aren't wasting any time. And his story does just what it needs to do. It's a high-caliber actor to have in, though, for just this tiny bit.
It's so funny.
But yeah, there is this nice tension building up as the little robot goes along, though, and it goes along very slowly.
Oh my god, it's painfully slow, and it's got this massive. But again, it's just another instance in this film, though, where the music doesn't really line up with the with what you're looking at, because again, it's this massive bah, 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 and you just see this little thing just like like taking 30 seconds, like taking like half a minute just to do a 90-degree turn before it then starts plodding along at. Oh my god!
Do you get the feeling it was one of those nightmare props like the Scutters and Red Dwarf? Just
like I imagine the props team would have had an absolute nightmare with that thing. Again, like you know, and fair play to them. Like again, we're talking like the restrict. Actually, no, I'm not going to defend it really because you know it was what 1972, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, there were films out there that had sort of they could have done it differently. They could have done it differently, rather than having the whole full body shot of those little those little robot things that just sort of can only like move a millimeter forward with each step. They could have done that so much better.
They were saving money, man. Do you notice that almost all the music was copyright free?
Yeah. I mean, what was that?
The money.
What was that? I forget. I always forget the name of the song or the piece that they used at the beginning. What was that?
I will look that up for you. A night on Bald Mountain.
Ah, yeah. I mean, I recognised it, and I was like, "Oh my god, why are they using that?"
It is very recognisable. If the title sounds weird, then you will you'll know it when you hear it, as is often the case with classical. I thought it added gravitas and saved the money. You notice when this was released, by the way, so over the few releases, the first one, it lost 4 minutes in the 1988 video release. Do you reckon all 4 minutes with that bloody robot just...
Probably. BBFC were like, look, we don't have a problem with this scene. Okay, we you know, mums aren't going to cry out in fear and outrage when they take little Timmy to go and see this film. Not that little Timmy should be watching it, but we get it. You like the Trump bots. We really get it, but you're gonna have to shave off some time.
Yeah, so it's an oddity. There's a 2004 version that was only 82 minutes.
Okay.
Weird. And then the other releases in 93 and 2019 are 88. So
right.
I don't know what's up with that. I don't know what they cut out. As it's a pretty short movie.
Probably more Trump bots.
They're too upset by the Trump bots. Oh,
yeah.
Gosh. We've also got a bit of the like classic movie logic of the tiniest stab instantly dead.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, this scalpel does take Dr. Rutherford out very quickly.
Well, to be fair, it was probably the one remaining nerve in his system that was still connected to his brain, given he was the old wheelchair man.
The Henry Abbey, you're far too kind to me. far too kind. Oh dear.
Your movie catalogue now. Your movie catalogue is starting to build up quite a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, that Kid in the Omen. Most of the cast of Society in the third act. You know, take your pick. Various sequences in The Thing. Anyway, yeah, we again slightly tamer logic. So that we've got a bloodless stabbing in the back of the head that is built up to in quite a funny way. While they argue. Because they sort of settle their debate, don't they?
Yeah, they do. He refuses to answer the question.
Yes, correct. Sorry, if that was unclear for folks, the debate they've been having all movie between the old way of treating the asylum, you know, you can't help them, keep them away, and the Dr. Martin's modernising compassionate methods. They sort of settled this here, and Martin kind of refuses to play the game. As you say, and in fact wants nothing to do with the asylum. He's going to go back to London.
Yeah, and then the wheelchair guy goes, "I'll give you a job."
Yeah, unexpected, but then you know, yeah, the stabbing sort of makes it all a bit moot. It's quite nicely done, and I thought it looks really good. And then the smashing the chest plate of the robot as well was glorious.
Mm.
I mean, I don't know if I'm overselling it, but I just thought they did such a good job with the implication of what it did to the real life Dr. Byron, who had put his consciousness in the robot.
Yeah, I mean, that was cool. I didn't know where he got the internal organs from for the robot.
I
was thinking, because I was just thinking, I thought he was battery operated. Like, where are the batteries?
Maybe it's sort of child's play logic. You know how when Charles Lee Ray is in Chucky, the longer he's in Chucky, the more sort of human Chucky becomes.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay. I mean, the guy is already psychically connected to it because he thought really hard. So, yeah, okay, I'll go with that. Harry,
they don't tell you.
No. So, and again, that's that's us filling the gaps for the writers, I guess. Harrian wouldn't accept that. I'm just telling you, if he was here right now.
Harrian wouldn't have made it through this film. He wouldn't have made it through the sequence where the woman was being menaced by a leg on the floor. He'd have just said step over.
Yeah.
And we all like to say step over around here, but I'll be honest, that initial sequence, she's just being menaced by like a torso. And
yeah.
Love, I mean, what's it going to do? To be fair.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Flail at me?
Yeah, the bless him, that was... I
mean, she could have picked up the head and punted it, you know? A good old-fashioned goal kick.
I'll totally pick up the leg and use that to whack the other body parts around.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's exactly. There to work so hard to sort of try and sell that sequence, and I'm not convinced they managed to. But it's only the opening story, and we move past it quite quickly. So the murder of Rutherford means that Martin smashes a chest plate on the robot and sees weird organs inside, and we are only left to assume from the howl of pain what that did to Dr. Byron's chest. But when Martin runs up there to try and get some help, I have to find the right image here. Hang on, give me a second, folks. Oof. He's told by the orderly Max Reynolds, the guy who's been helping him the whole time, that the guy's chest has been caved in. So he wants to call for help. Oh, he also tells Max that he'd identified Byron as Dr. Byron as Dr. Starr. So
That's
he
right.
did give his solution.
Yeah, after that. Yeah, do you know what? I will say, I love this sort of blink and you'll miss it moment, like right at the beginning of the film when he first meets, is it Reynolds?
Yeah.
Because he's looking around the rooms, or he's looking in the corridor, and he's pointing to the rooms, and then he points to the room that they're in now, and Reynolds just stops him sort of mid sentence. No, that's my office. Oh, okay, and then he just sort of carries on, and then begins to do the conversation. So it's almost like the urgency, but it is a blink and you miss it moment, because chat, for those who didn't do their homework, and shame on you, you'll have to stay behind after class for 50 lines. I will complete my horror homework, is what you will write on the board. Anyway, goes in the room, and he finds that it's not an office. It's a patient's room. And then he looks over at the bed, and there looks like there's something underneath it. He edges over closer to the bed, and he pulls down the sheet, and underneath is a corpse. Stunned, the doctor turns back to the orderly and says there's a body there. And that's when Reynolds turns around and says, it's Byron. Or Dr. Starr, sorry. Dr. Starr.
That's it. Reynolds. The body is Dr. Reynolds. I'm Dr. Starr. Oh, glorious.
That's it. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting all muddled up.
Does it with such... He's like Kenneth Williams evil twin. He brings out the full sort of sardonic camp evil. It becomes gloriously over the top, and of course, because we don't have too much blood in here, he goes for the strangle and strangles him with a stethoscope, which I thought was a really nice touch.
Yeah. I wonder if Rutherford actually knew that Starr was Reynolds this whole time.
Well, I think he must have.
Yeah.
And that's maybe one of it's one of those things I was gonna raise it and just ask if it really holds together, why Rutherford would sort of why would Rutherford really send him up there? Why would he let Dr. Starr act as Max Reynolds for the whole time? But he did say that he lets them live out their fantasies early on in the film, so possibly it's that he figures no one's going to really check, no one's going to really complain, so yeah, the guy's been fine so far. Maybe he figured it would actually work out okay.
Yeah, because again, I don't think it's implied that Rutherford knew, but yeah, I mean, I kind of walked away from the film afterwards thinking, I wonder if he knew. I wonder if that was the whole plan all along.
There's some fridge logic around it. I'm going to go with Rutherford thought that he knew, but he thought that the new role of Max Reynolds was actually harmless.
Yeah.
And that he could, this new personality was fine, and so he says, I let them live out their fantasy. So yeah, he's going to be Max Reynolds. It'll all go well, and then I'll sort of tell him and epically pwn him with facts and logic. At the end, if he hasn't worked it out. Maybe that was the thought process, but this is done with quite a lot of ferocity, quite a lot of like really intense acting, like the close-ups on the faces. It's sold as something very high energy, which I liked. It did deliver it quite well, and then the final touch with the maniacal laughter of in Dr. Starr mode, listening for the heartbeat and finding it's gone.
Yeah, and it's just and it's that noise he's making as well. He's like, and then he breaks out into that like full blown cackle.
He just goes for it 100%.
Yeah, and
I love it. You can't do half measures here. It had to be the whole thing, and it leads into our. Oh, that's gone wrong. There we go. Apologies. That leads to our closure. So I thought I'd managed to click the button to kick me out the studio then. I beat myself. Terrible.
Yeah.
Oh. We get a double twist here, of course. We see in maybe a little nod and a wink towards dead of night that the cycle is going to start again. Another doctor arrives to audition for the position and is met by Dr. Starr here.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Give it a go. It's on YouTube. It's a short one. It moves fast, unless it's a section with the robots, in which case you will be aching to fast forward. It's cozy. It's a very cozy film, and it's delivered nicely. But yeah, that does get us to the end of Asylum, a film with a little more sociological context than we might have thought going into it. How'd this ending work for you, TCG?
Yeah, it was fine, I guess. Yeah, fine.
Yeah, I know.
The
wraparound stories really work for me. I know they're not your thing as much.
I don't mind. I don't mind if it works. If it works. I mean, again, it was going to be difficult. It would have been difficult for them to end it any other way. I think if they were going to try and make it more convoluted. Because I mean, obviously they killed off the main protagonist, and So it only made sense that they would perhaps rope in other victims, maybe. And now the lunatics do run the asylum. So it works. It works. I liked it. Simple. Doesn't need to be anything other than that. Cool.
Yeah. I suppose that as long as if you don't think too much, you're like, what are the other staff going to...
Exactly, yeah.
Unless he's offed all of... Anyway, we probably shouldn't think too much about it.
Yeah.
As you say, how else are you going to end it? And we'll pass it off as a little Dead of Night tribute to make the film even classier.
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's everything on it, should we go into closing thoughts and scores?
Let's.
All right. Well, chat. Time to get those scores in. You know how we do it around here. Out of 12 burgers for Asylum from 1972. If you did your homework, if not, it is on YouTube. TCG, would you like to lead us off?
Yeah, sure. So I think the concept of the overarching story could have been a little bit better. Like I said, I mean, they didn't have to throw in the old Guess Who, but now that we've actually sat down and spoken about the film, I kind of changed my mind a little bit on it. I'm kind of more open to that idea. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I mean, the second story for me was by far the best one. Just, I say, like, because of the nods to, you know, like the Lovecraftian sort of themes. Blatant use of a Necronomicon, loved it. The other two stories weren't too bad. The third one lost me a little bit, but I did like the first one just for the rest in pieces one-liner. Just that won me over. But yeah, I'd give it overall. I would say, you know, it's a bit of a dry burger because there isn't a lot of ketchup, but there was a tiny bit more than, say, other horror films. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 12 burgers with a pinch of ketchup in between a slice of lettuce and the burger. And yeah, it's your job to guess whether that burger is proper meat or I'm sad to say, vegan meat. Ugh.
Oh dear. 8 is I'm happy with that. I think that came out a bit better than I worried at the start. I'm happy with that.
But it's a plot twist though, because it's not actually a beef burger, it's a chicken burger.
Absolutely banned. We do not chicken burger around here. How dare, rude. Yeah. Eadwolf has got it. I like that. The Happy Meal toy. Yes. That's
the first, actually. I don't think we've had a Happy Meal toy in our burgers.
This is
nice.
It's going to be in this one.
But yeah, it was fun. I'd say 8.
I'm happy with 8. I'm very happy with that. Harrian would have given it 4.
He would. I was going to say he would have given it 2.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, he definitely would have hated the women in the third story. Yeah.
Burgers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, as I said, I'm quite biased towards this one. I'm a fan of it. I'm biased towards anthologies anyway. I think this is Amicus making something a bit more confident, and they've brought in bigger talent for this one. The cast is maybe a little less known. Like, we don't have Christopher Lee in this one, but we've still got Peter Cushing. We've got Herbert Lom. We've got Patrick McGee. And, I'm happy to see a young Robert Powell. That name might mean not so much to anyone outside of the US, but, what can you do? For Brits, it's a treat. I like the Britishness. I like that they escalated to a little bit of gore and blood. And the wraparound story really works for me. We're seeing it in development. It is going to be a while until we get the really strong wraparound stories, but they are coming. This is a good step towards them. And I'm taking off points a bit because the stories, when you ultimately think about them, are largely that too many of them are golem stories. I like a bit more variety. Like we had in, Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, the House at Drip Blood, all of them, big variety in the type of stories, but what we got, they were told well. So, a very strong sword coming in from Waifu there.
Blimey.
Is that's just got to be the tribute to Gatsby is in there. That's got to be. I can't blame you. So it's got its weaknesses. The logic might not hold together if you think about it too much, but it had some interesting social context. The DP on this, like the directing and the photography, was great. Music maybe a little weaker, but the theme, the sociological issue, put some meat on the bone. So for me, I'm rating this a little bit higher, but I think 8.5 is probably fair for it. We are going to see the higher heights of this. Like, we haven't got to the stuff that I think is really the tip top. It will take us a while, but we are going to get there. So this is good progress. 8.5, I think, and hopefully, an amended vote for 8. Yeah, I think 8 is fair. We can go with that. That first story is janky. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Good assessment.
Sweet.
Yeah, so folks, the horror homework for next week is going to be Outpost from 2008, I believe it is. Yeah, I think it's Outpost from 2008. We're doing that in tribute to Ray Stevenson, who passed rather young. And it was requested by Fez. I'm very happy to do that. So that's going to break it up a little bit. I was going to go for Psychological Horror Part 2 for the arc for July. I think because we're sort of on the cusp of some very big changes, we will have next week as a bit of a break, covering Outpost, and then we'll go back into horror anthologies, because in the 80s, these absolutely explode. These go crazy. We're going to have to do at least 2 arcs on 80s anthology horror, because
Nice.
all the big names are coming in. Twilight Zone, the movie, Reawoken Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, Tales from the Crypt, Cat's Eye. We're getting so many of these movies, right? It's going to be great. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing an upvote for Outpost and a late score from the NREAB.
Am I right?
Nice.
Did you say the Twilight Zone?
Twilight Zone movie, yeah.
Am I right in thinking that Dan Aykroyd's in that?
He is, I believe.
Yes. Okay. I there's one scene I'm very familiar with, because it used to petrify my wife when she was
I've
younger.
not seen it.
Have you not? Okay.
No,
Yeah,
I'm going in blind.
Yeah, all I know is that one scene, but it is brilliant. I won't say anything.
All right. So I think we'll go back into it and tell you what, if you want to sort of on Twitter or somewhere on this video, actually on this video is good, comment the 80s horror anthologies you want to see, if you want Creepshow, etc. Let me know. It's going to be tough choosing. I will do 2 arcs on it because there's so many, but we will try and do it justice. Nightmares as well, yeah. I saw Shelley Duvall did a series as well. Shelley Duvall did a horror anthology series, very short-lived, but I'm interested. So that is everything. That is horror homework. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to
Shill.
I'm going to shill.
You're going to
I'm
shill.
going to shill. Get your shill in, TCG.
Okie dokie.
You go for it. You lead.
So yeah, tomorrow I will be back over on my second channel. We'll do part 16 of Ace Attorney, the trilogy. So do join me there. I will probably be going live from around 9:30. Seems to be the time that I tend to stream from. But about 30 minutes before we went live over here, I did release a new video on my main channel. It's 9 minutes long. It is a little bit different to what I normally do. I'm just popped a link in the chat now for you. But yeah, if you've not quite had your fill of horror, go and check this one out. It is a true story. It's an unsolved story. And you might just want to double check your locks before you go to bed tonight.
There we go, folks. It's in the chat. If you don't watch it tonight, watch it tomorrow. You know, TCG makes a great vid.
This one I'm particularly proud of. I was saying to a couple of people, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I'm like, I love the way it's come out, editing wise. I found this new font that I've just completely fallen in love with. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's probably best because it's one of the shorter ones that I've done, but I've been trying a couple of different things out lately, and this particular story, I say, it's completely different to sort of like your general mill. Oh, there's a serial killer. Oh, someone got murdered. You know, I wanted to try and sort of bend the rules as to what a true crime content creator puts out, and this one is just horrifying, but for so many different reasons. So yeah, please do check it out. It really helps. It really does. All right.
As for me, as you heard, a bit of chaos with everything going on. So I only managed to put out the latest cozy reading, which is a reading of Roald Dahl's Nunc Dimittis. That is a long one, though. That is hefty. And the narration is done by Simon Roberts, who did an amazing job of it. So if you haven't tried out any of the cozy readings, check them out. They're just lovely, nice, sinister stories from Roald Dahl, showing you a side that maybe most people haven't heard of. It's very cozy. That's the vibe I go for. So a sort of late night listen. I have edited one of the videos I made earlier about the Midnight Club. I'm going to put that out to members, and I'm going to see if it passes their standards test. And if it does, I'll release that widely. We'll see how that one goes. And otherwise, I have been writing one of several scripts on Triangle, the last film we covered, and The Shining. There's a lot in there, so I'm going to break it into small parts. But I've done the script for looking at Triangle through the lens of David Lynch, and hopefully I'll get working on that. But otherwise, things are busy, so stuff will come out when I can make it. But probably it's going to be the streams for the most part. So with that, you have the horror homework, and I'm just going to put up again. I'm just going to end on this. We all miss him, and just say, don't be put off. Don't be put off older cats. You get your time with them. They're lovely. They will improve your life a lot. And sad to be without him, alas. I shouldn't have put that up. I got emotional again. Anyway, it won't be the same, but we do have very good memories. We all miss Gatsby a lot. I will be signing off now. So massive thank you to everyone for watching. I hope you enjoy next week. Hope to see you back for next week. Hi to everyone on the replay if you made it this far. And thanks again to TCG for coming along. We couldn't do this without you.
Oh, bless you. No, pleasure as always. Pleasure as always.
All right, folks. Thanks very much. I'll sign off. Thanks, y'all. Cheers.